Seen me, if you've ever met me, you will quickly realize, or one of the first things you'll notice, is that if there's one thing that I do not have, it's a big belly. I honestly hardly have a belly at all. I'm more of a scarecrow that's missing his stuffing, you know? But this video isn't about my bone structure or lack of body fat. This video is about a little Chinese knife manufacturer that you may or may not have heard of. But that is, at least based on my so far limited experience, most definitely deserving of your attention. But the opening stream of consciousness about body fat indexes does tie into knives, believe it or not. And that is because this is the TuyaKnife's Big Belly. That's right, that is actually its official name. It's not a joke, but the knife most definitely lives up to that name, as goofy and seemingly foolish as it may be. The design was the brainchild of a man by the name of Michael Galovich, or Mitchell, or Mikhail. Anyway, do with that information what you will. The Big Belly here is a full-size, full carbon fiber integral. Yes, you heard me correctly. This is a real-life, full-blown integral. As in, made of one single block of carbon fiber carefully milled into the sensual shape you see before you. It is a medium to full-size knife, but thanks to the fact that it is 99% carbon fiber, it weighs next to nothing. Also, surely by now you've noticed those Benchmade-style axis locks, so yeah, we've got a lot to talk about on this one. Looks-wise, I mean, it is a damn clean-looking piece. Closed up, we've got those thumb studs and axis lock bars in shiny silver contrasting against the flat black carbon fiber. Because it is an integral, we have extremely minimal hardware, as in a pivot screw and one single body screw and one single clip screw. That has been nicely tucked away out of sight under the clip itself. Always a nice touch. The clip is this simple and relatively shapeless piece of milled titanium that, to my eye, looks a little bit out of place here, but it works well enough while not being deep carry by any means. Closed up, we have a hint of this piece's namesake peeking up from behind the carbon fiber, just a hint of belt satin finished M390 gleaming and sparkling in the light. A reminder of things to come. There is no backspacer because, well, like I said, it's an integral. Just clean, well-finished carbon everywhere you look. Now then, the first time I opened this knife when it arrived, I literally said out loud to myself and probably my cat, at a not-so-reasonable volume level, holy shit, that is a big belly. And then I laughed to myself and went on with my life. And yes, that is quite the Big Belly. This curvaceous and sensually sculpted slab of belt satin finished M390 makes one hell of a statement, to say the very least. A subtle harpoon towards the handles on the spine, a nice flat is sandwiched between the grind and the swedge, a good and stabby tip, a beefy looking slicer that is nearly totally barren and void of any billboarding or branding, which is always a nice look. And opened up, the profile of this piece is absolutely mesmerizing to me. Subtle ergonomic lines, deep, rich, black carbon fiber juxtaposed with the shiny and flashy grind lines in the hardware. It's just a damn good looking folder overall. And now then, moving on to the Ergos. And as I've mentioned, we have some subtle ergonomic sculpting at the bottom of the handle to help aid in hand placement and comfort. But outside of that, we don't have much else at all in the way of traditional ergonomic tells, if you will. No jimping at all, no forward finger choil, and not even a hint of any kind of extra texturing to add to grippiness. But all of that aside, the ergonomics are still pretty solid. It's not an excessively long piece, but it's nice and tall, so it will comfortably fill most any sized hand, and all of the edges have been so nicely knocked down. That aforementioned shapeless titanium pocket clip sits so flat and low against the handle that you barely notice it in your palm. And overall, in use, I really have no complaints other than the fact that a forward choil would have been appreciated for just a bit of added blade control. Overall, though, the Ergos are solid. The action on this piece is, well, it's honestly pretty astonishing in a very, very good way. We do only have the thumb studs to use for actuation, and they do sit just a little too tight, a little too close to those handles for my personal preference. That being said, they stick out just far enough to easily push the fat of your thumb or finger up against them for opening, and all it takes is a gentle push, and I mean just the gentlest of pushes, to rocket that big belly out of the handle. It almost feels assisted. You really don't have to try at all to get this thing to open. Thumb flicks and reverse flicks are snappy and satisfying. The thumb studs are nicely machined and comfortable for those, hours-long fidget sessions. Another kicker, this thing is running on bearings and some damn smooth ones to boot. So pulling those nicely domed axis lock bars back swings that big belly slicer home real quick and in a hurry. Honestly, this might be some of, if not the best action on an axis style knife I have ever experienced. Buttery smooth and completely silent bearings make that blade feel like it's defying gravity. It's an excellent action overall. And finally, the party piece on the Tuya Big Belly, that blade. As I said before, this big, beautiful slicer is M390, and it's rocking this gorgeous belt satin finish. And aside from looking great, it's been a solid performer. We have a nice tall flat grind paired with some hardy blade stock, so it's not exactly the thinnest behind the edge, but that big belly blade shape along with some solid cutting geometry makes this thing a blade made for working. And now from the factory, my edge was, well, let's be honest, it wasn't great. In fact, it needed quite a lot of love to bring it up to scuff. The edge bevels were even, and it looked good, but it didn't really cut much of anything. Luckily, after 30-45 minutes on the Worksharp Precision Adjust, I was able to bring it up to par. And ever since, this thing has just met and exceeded all of my expectations for a good blade made out of great steel. So, a great blade that just needs a little help out of the box to get to its full potential. So where does all of this leave me with the TuyaKnife Big Belly? Well, let's get the price out of the way right now. From Tuya's US distributor and from a lot of other big retailers, you can pick this dad bod rocking integral and carbon fiber M390 up for $279. And just let that sink in. A full-blown high-end integral for under $300. But right off the bat, that was the reason for me to buy this in the first place. That was more than reason enough for me to see value in it. Aside from the novelty of it being an integral, though, I really think this design stands on its own. Build quality and overall fit and finish, other than the factory edge issues, are insanely impressive. The blade centering was spot on out of the box and has remained that way ever since. No blade play, no lock rock, as solid as a rock top to bottom. The action is supremely satisfying, silky smooth, and generally speaking, a whole lot of fidgety fun. The looks are top-notch, beautiful materials, all beautifully finished and well put together. The factory edge was basically garbage, but the blade steel M390 seems to have been well heat-treated and has taken and held a new edge extremely well. The conclusion here is, well, I really like this thing. It's mind-blowing to me that you can get this much knife made of this much high-end material for under $300. And then tack on the integral aspect of it all, and you've got a real winner in my book. That is, of course, as long as you're not afraid of reprofiling a pretty hefty slab of M390 at home. And I guess that's it. All that's left to say is, as always, until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.